The oak tree in my front yard had been there longer than any house on the block, maybe even longer than the town itself. Its thick branches twisted into the sky like a gnarled crown, and when the wind blew, the leaves would whisper 1,000 stories. It was more than just a tree. It was legacy. My grandfather planted it in 1956. My father refused to ever trim it below 20 feet. I hung a tire swing from it when I was 9, and when my dad passed, I scattered his ashes beneath it. But that didn't matter to Karen. Karen Rothschild moved into the house next door after her divorce from some tech executive in Seattle. She arrived in a pristine white BMW SUV with a barking designer dog in her lap and 2 HOA bylaws in her hand. I remember her first words to me, "You really ought to do something about that tree. It's throwing shade on my roses." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. That tree cast a gentle morning shadow across the front half of her lawn, maybe an hour of indirect light at most. But for Karen, this was an unacceptable attack on her landscaping rights. Within 2 weeks of moving in, I received my first formal letter. "Dear Mr. Callahan, we respectfully request that you trim or remove the oak tree on your property as it significantly affects the sunlight distribution on the adjacent lot. Continued noncompliance will result in formal HOA mediation." I read the letter twice and then laughed out loud. That laughter died when I realized she was serious. Over the next few months, Karen escalated her campaign. She filed complaints, took photos of leaf litter, claimed the tree's roots were damaging community harmony. She even called a private arborist to my house, without my permission, to assess the risk. The man left embarrassed, apologizing. "Tree's healthy, strong, no disease, not a threat." That didn't stop her. She cornered me on a Sunday morning as I was mowing the lawn, sunglasses perched on her face like a hawk about to strike. "That tree needs to come down. It's obstructing my view." I asked her, "View of what? My driveway?" She sneered. "My property affects my property value. That gives me standing." Standing. The word echoed. Karen loved her legal buzzwords. I'd worked construction my whole life, but I'd read enough contracts to know her claims were laughable. The real tipping point came in spring. Storm season had just passed, and everything was lush again. My tree, proud and strong, was budding like never before. I was out front sipping coffee when I noticed Karen pacing along the fence line, phone in hand. 10 minutes later, I saw a city vehicle pull up. The code enforcement officer was polite, but firm. "We received an anonymous tip about a possible overgrowth and root encroachment. Mind if I take a look?" I said, "Let me guess. Was this anonymous tip made by a blonde woman in yoga pants with a superiority complex?" He sighed. "I'm not allowed to confirm that." He inspected everything. Roots, contained. Branches, clear of power lines. Health? Excellent. He even commented on how rare it was to see an oak that size in such good condition. When he left without citing me, Karen practically screamed. She called me a tree hoarder, whatever that meant, and stormed back inside. That night, I found a handwritten note in my mailbox. No envelope, just fury scribbled in cursive. "You think you are clever? You won't win. That tree is a liability, and I will make sure the city sees it that way." That's when I realized this wasn't about sunlight or roots or leaves. It was about control. Karen needed to win, and I needed her to lose. So I started planning. I consulted an arborist of my own, one that specialized in historical trees. He came out and confirmed what I suspected. The tree was not only healthy, but protected. It had been planted before any zoning laws existed in the area. It was grandfathered in. Then I visited the county clerk's office and requested all HOA amendments. That's when I hit gold. Karen had quietly rewritten several landscaping clauses when she joined the board, likely expecting no one would ever check. I did. More than check, I copied them, highlighted them, annotated every last shady edit. Then I waited. 3 weeks later, I got the letter. Karen had submitted a formal motion to the HOA to have my tree forcibly removed. She included pictures of overgrowth, structural danger, and claimed it was attracting pests. Her motion was set to be reviewed at the next meeting. She thought she had me. I RSVP'd for the meeting, showed up early, brought copies of everything: the arborist report, the city clearance, the photos of her dog digging up my flower bed that she claimed my tree had attracted squirrels to. And when the meeting began, I let her speak first.
She was in rare form. He refuses to respect community standards. This tree is a hazard. I've seen termites, crawling near my home. My dog won't go near it. I fear for my safety every time there's a wind. She passed out printouts to the board, all manipulated photos showing exaggerated root systems and cropped angles that made the branches look like they hovered over her house. They didn't, not even close. When she was done, I stood. I have 3 points, I said. 1, this tree is protected under Municipal Code 47B. 2, I have verified that it poses no danger, is free from disease, and is over 2 feet away from all property boundaries. And 3, I paused, then placed a folder in front of each board member. Your president, Karen Rothschild, has been altering bylaws without full member consent, including landscaping clauses, page 4, highlighted. Silence. One member flipped through the packet and raised an eyebrow. Another looked at Karen, frowning. Karen stammered, That's out of context. I was cleaning up language. Sure, and I'm sure cleaning up also means removing voter signatures and skipping quarterly amendment ballots. The board called a recess. When they returned, they denied her motion, publicly, loudly. They even suggested an audit of all rule changes made during Karen's term. The look on her face, indescribable. But I wasn't done yet. 2 nights later, I woke up at 2 a.m. to a loud crash, rushed to the window. There, in the beam of my porch light, was my tree. Cut. A massive branch had been sawn through and lay crashed across my driveway. It missed the Harley by inches. Splinters were everywhere. I called the police immediately. When they arrived, they confirmed what I already knew. This was deliberate. Clean cuts, fresh sawdust. No storm, no wind. The kicker? A security camera 2 houses down caught everything, including a figure in a hoodie walking back to Karen's house with a handsaw. I pressed charges. The cops brought her in for questioning. She denied it, of course, claimed Kyle had borrowed tools to build a birdhouse. But the footage, the motive, the timing, it all stacked up. She was charged with trespassing, property damage, and reckless endangerment. She paid bail, but the damage to her reputation, irreversible. And then came the day I'd been waiting for. The county finally scheduled trimming work on the tree for safety. I attended the meeting personally, and I made a request. I'd like to direct the drop zone. The foreman blinked. You want to choose where the branch falls? Exactly. We walked through it. I marked the cut, we reviewed the angle, and the morning of the trimming, I made sure Karen was home. She watched from her porch, glaring, arms crossed, as the chainsaw buzzed and the final large limb came crashing down directly onto her roof of her brand-new BMW SUV. It shattered the windshield, caved in the hood, and set off the alarm. The sound echoed like victory. Karen screamed, ran outside. You did this on purpose! I shrugged. The wind is a funny thing. Nature's unpredictable, isn't it? She tried to sue, again. She claimed I'd maliciously directed the fall.
But the city backed me. The trimming was sanctioned, the drop zone reviewed and approved, and her car, it was parked illegally. HOA rules, remember? No overnight parking on shared driveways. Funny how those rules work. The case was tossed. Her insurance refused to cover it due to the violation. And Karen? She moved out 3 months later. Now I sit under that tree every evening, rocking on a porch swing made from the fallen limb, sipping sweet tea, listening to the wind whisper through the leaves. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the sound of a 70-year-old oak tree dropping vengeance right onto a shiny white BMW. The stump of the fallen limb had been sanded smooth. I carved my father's initials into it, then sealed it in resin. Every time I walked past it, I felt the tree was not just surviving, it was winning. Karen's BMW was towed the same day the branch fell. She had stood in the driveway in slippers and a rage-red bathrobe, yelling at the tow driver, flailing her arms like she could stop the process by sheer volume. She couldn't. Within days, the story had swept through the neighborhood like a wildfire. Every neighbor I had barely spoken to was now waving, smiling, even bringing over pie. A man named Harold, who hadn't spoken a word to me in over a year, leaned over the fence and said, "About damn time someone put her in her place." I never said a word, not one "I told you so." I didn't have to. But Karen wasn't done. Oh no. Some people go quietly. Karen was more like a dying firework, noisy, unpredictable, and about to explode. She started sending letters again. To the HOA, to the city, to the State Tree Protection Authority, each one more dramatic than the last. In one of them, she claimed the tree had psychological dominance over the property line, whatever that meant. In another, she said she had suffered emotional trauma from the tree's shadowy oppression. I kid you not, those were her words. She even claimed the tree was racist. That's how far she went. Said it represented a legacy of oppressive masculinity in landscaping. I don't know what yoga blog she pulled that from, but the state ignored her, the HOA ignored her, everyone ignored her. Except her ex-husband. He showed up one afternoon in a black Audi, the kind you only drive when you've got something to prove. He stood at her front door for a good 5 minutes knocking while she screamed through the closed window. Something about the joint ownership of the property, something about their son Kyle being suspended from college for slashing someone's tires, something about alimony being revoked if she didn't get her behavior under control. I sat on my porch with a bag of peanuts and enjoyed the show.
Eventually, the yelling stopped. The Audi peeled out, and Karen went back to sulking inside, blinds drawn like she was living in a bunker. That's when I decided it was time to finish this. I gathered every photo, every letter, every email. I had months' worth of documented harassment, trespassing, malicious mischief, slander, false reports. I even had a voicemail she accidentally left while ranting about how she wished she could take a chainsaw to that damn tree and the man under it. I didn't press charges again. That would have been too clean. Instead, I filed for a permanent civil protection order and paired it with a public nuisance claim. I did it by the book, through the county, with notarized affidavits from neighbors who were more than happy to sign. The result? Karen could no longer so much as walk within 10 feet of my property line. Couldn't attend HOA meetings if I was present. Couldn't mail complaints, send emails, or even speak my name in official correspondence without risking contempt of court. She'd been legally gagged. For weeks, it was bliss. But then came the final insult to her delusion. During one of the newly scheduled HOA meetings, ones I actually attended now that Karen had no voice, I proposed the following motion. To recognize the oak tree at 3041 Beacon Hill as a protected community heritage landmark. The room was silent at first. Then Marcy, yes, sweet pie-baking Marcy, stood up and said,
I second that motion. Votes came in, one after another, 11 to 1. The one? Karen's best friend Nancy, who later admitted she only voted no out of guilt. So, it was official. The tree, my tree, was now a landmark. A plaque was installed at the base, a polished bronze oval that read, Beacon Oak, planted 1956, preserved 2023. A living legacy. I held a small gathering the day it was unveiled. Just neighbors, coffee, and some old black and white photos of my grandfather standing next to a sapling. People asked me about the tree's history, about how long I planned to keep it. I smiled and said, longer than any BMW. Karen moved out the next month. No warning, no farewell, just a for sale sign, and then one day a moving truck, and silence. Word had it her ex-husband cut off her support. Kyle was expelled after that tire slashing incident. They left town quietly, finally. Probably the only quiet thing they ever did. The new owners were a young couple, teachers. They hung a swing from the tree, just like I used to. Every time I see them push their daughter on it, giggling and happy, I feel like the tree finally reclaimed its purpose. Not just a legacy, but a promise that some things are worth standing up for. A month later, I got a manila envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a handwritten note. You may have won the tree, but you'll never win the world. People like you never do. And stapled to the bottom was a photo of her BMW, crushed, totally towed away. I smiled. Karen still didn't get it. I hadn't won despite being me. I'd won because I stood my ground, because I used facts, law, and patience. Because sometimes revenge isn't fire and fury. Sometimes it's roots, quiet, deep, and immovable. Sometimes revenge is as simple as letting gravity finish what someone else's arrogance begins. That oak tree still stands today. And every so often I pat it to bark, nod, and whisper, good job, old friend. Because in a battle between a petty Karen and an immovable oak, bet on the tree every time.